Today, Republican candidates are making a final push to get their supporters to the primary polls tomorrow. Former President Donald Trump and the state's former governor, Nikki Haley, will be on opposite sides of the state for campaign events. On the campaign trail yesterday, Haley touted a new poll showing she has a better chance of defeating President Biden than Trump. She's also faced scrutiny in the recent days over comments regarding an Alabama Supreme Court ruling. It granted frozen embryos used in vitro fertilization the same rights as children. Here's what some voters are saying.
If you don't carry your home state, you're going to have a tough time winning down the road.
Early voting in South Carolina ended yesterday. According to the state's election commission, more than 160,000 voters have already cast their ballots in the GOP primary race. Saturday marks exactly 2 years since Russia launched its war against Ukraine. As the war enters its third year, Gray Television's White House correspondent John Decker examines what comes next for Ukraine and what a Putin victory would mean for the rest of Europe.
As Russia's war with Ukraine enters its third year, national security experts say Ukraine's future as a sovereign country may depend on the generosity of the U.S. and an aid package that contains more than $60 billion in military support for Ukraine.
They've made advances on the maritime domain, and so they've reopened trade through the Black Sea, Ukrainian waters of the Black Sea, and that's a positive. If we gave them more long-range artillery, more of the British and French Storm Shadows, the U.S. ATACMS that are longer range, then I think they have a chance to really make progress.
Ukraine's ambassador to the U.S., Oksana Markarova, stressing as things stand today, Ukraine is running low on ammunition.
The situation is very difficult. For a while now, we have very bad ratios of our artillery to Russian artillery. So it's at most it's 1 to 6.1, 6.1 shelled by Russians and only 1 us in response.
That dire situation is why a bipartisan group of senators joined forces to overwhelmingly pass a foreign aid bill that they believe would send an important message to Russian President Vladimir Putin.
I think the future of Ukraine is at stake. I mean, Ukrainians will fight to the last Ukrainian if they have to, but the future of Ukraine as an independent state is at stake, and the future of European stability, the future of the international order, because Putin wants to take us back to the pre-World War II order, the one where spheres of influence dominated, where a big state could tell small states what to do.
That aid package still needs to pass the House. In the meantime, France and Germany have each signed long-term security deals with Ukraine that provides billions of dollars in training, military equipment, and ammunition. Despite that, Ukraine's ambassador says her country cannot win against Russia without the help of the United States. At the White House, I'm John Decker.
Despite support from President Biden in the Senate, House Republicans are reluctant to give more aid. The Ukrainian president warns without it, Russia will continue to advance. An American spacecraft is finally back on the moon for the first time in more than 50 years. The lunar lander blasted off on a rocket last week and successfully landed on the moon yesterday. But it's still unclear exactly where it touched down and when we'll see pictures from the surface. The spacecraft originally lost its navigational capability, but found it with riding with luck. Part of its cargo, a NASA navigational experiment. Flight controllers tapped into it to help guide the lander softly to the surface.
This actually helps with navigation. It's running independent of our navigation system, but this is NASA's entrant into how you do precision landing on the moon without GPS.
The moon lander targeted its landing near the moon's south pole. NASA says its craters may contain ice, which means water, a necessity for deeper space travel. Still to come here, what investigators say caused a Grand Forks apartment fire, displacing more than 24 people. And Summer has a look at your forecast. Stay with us.